Okay, I forgot to record this. Anyway, this is our second Wednesday webinar with Dr. Micah Sadigh from Cedar Grove College in Allentown, Pennsylvania. The rules are quite simple. Mute yourselves to block out background sound. You can unmute when question and answer period comes after his short introduction. Should I hear a lot of background noise, I have the ultimate power of muting everybody. I don't want to do that, but I will out of respect for our speaker. Very quickly, hello to Wendy from ProSomnus, who also jumped up to help and has reached out to her contact list, and I understand a number of her followers will be joining us as well. So thank you to Wendy, and welcome to ProSomnus as one of our collaborating groups. Just a quick announcement, next 2 weeks from now will be our third webinar with Dr. Dennis Bailey, who also spoke to us in 2019 in Toronto. His title, if you've been watching the email, is called The Nose Knows the Importance of the Nasal Airway. And if things go as I plan, I would like to have a bi-weekly Wednesday webinar that you can look forward to with speakers that we've already invited and others that we would have on our short list should we ever be allowed to do in-person meetings again. If there are any questions at the end, please hang on and give me some feedback. Send me a quick email when we're done so I know who attended. I think it's appropriate this time for me to stop talking and introduce our speaker, who is waiting in the wings to give us a short introduction. So without further ado, as they say from the podium, Dr. Micah Sadigh from Crest College, Cedar Crest College in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Take it away, Micah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Austin. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Please, you can call me Micah or Mika, both work, and you can just relax the doctor part. I'm so delighted to be here with you. I had such a wonderful time the last 2 times I was with you in Canada. And of course, it was a pleasure a few weeks ago when I gave a talk about anxiety. I know that the main purpose of tonight's meeting is for me to answer your questions or do my best to answer your questions. But I thought maybe I would give a quick overview about some key areas that are related to sleep. And what I really want to emphasize, and so if you go back to my first talk when we met in Canada in Toronto in 2018, I showed you this slide, and I spent about close to 2 hours discussing research that basically makes a connection between these causes of death in Canada and sleep. So those lectures were posted for you, and all the studies that connected sleep to cardiovascular diseases, cancer, respiratory issues, and diabetes, etc. So those papers were made available to you. And if you need those papers, please reach out to me. I just want to jump in and mention we've been, our email has been under attack for a number of weeks. So if you don't hear back from me, please try again. And at the end of the talk, I'll be happy to give you my cell number, and you're welcome to text me. So if you don't hear back from me, because Dr. Laurie, thank God he reached out to me, and he wanted an instrument I had mentioned last time to measure different dimensions of anxiety. So if you need me, please reach out to me. And if you don't hear back from me, that is not a common practice for me. I will get back to you as soon as I can. So the reason I'd like to show you this slide again, and I hope you hear me loud and clear, is that you're doing more than helping people get a good night's sleep. You're saving lives. That's how I concluded that talk going back 2 years ago. Right around this time, actually, it was 2 years ago. So Sleep is a mysterious thing we do every night. There are many factors that interfere with it. Uh, and unfortunately, I really can't make a statement about your country, but here in the U.S., we are a nation of insomniacs. On average, people in the United States get about 6 hours of sleep, and right now in our country, cardiovascular diseases is number one when it comes to causes of death. Please note that I am not suggesting that lack of sleep causes cardiovascular diseases or cancer, but it's a major contributor. And those 15, 20 papers that I reviewed for you made the connection, I think, very solid. So please keep in mind, you're not just helping people sleep, you're helping them live. And I take that incredibly seriously, what I mentioned to you. Oftentimes, people with a sleep disorder may be mistakenly diagnosed as having a psychiatric condition. And sometimes people with a psychiatric condition may have a sleep disorder. So there is a very intimate connection between psychiatric disorders and sleep disorders. And I think this is an area that we need to talk more about, perhaps in a future session, to make a distinction between these two areas and how they meet at the center. Lack of sleep will result in irritability, which is also a feature of depression. Lack of sleep will actually move you toward depression, which I see as a state of psychobiological exhaustion. Many cognitive issues, serious cognitive issues will come about as a result of lack of sleep. And also general fatigue would be a symptom of sleep disorder. If I can reach out to actually a file right a few feet from where I'm sitting right now, I have a study of a gentleman who had whose main symptoms, when I was asked to do a consult, his main reason for seeing me was because he was experiencing changes in memory and also extreme fatigue. And by the end of that one one consultation session, I asked him to, he said, you need to go for a sleep study. And he said, there's nothing wrong with my sleep. And he had such severe sleep apnea. If I could actually show you the
Dr. Sadigh, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. I was muted, David. Okay.
Yeah, I think I know who did that.
It's okay. That's okay. I won't take it personally.
My identical twin brother shows up every once in a while, and he's so hard to look after. He's crazy. Sorry.
That's quite okay. That's quite okay. If it happens, please, people wave, and I'll unmute myself. So I was mentioning this gentleman whose symptoms were not, according to him or his primary care physician, had nothing to do with sleep. This was purely the guy was losing his memory and experiencing extreme fatigue, and there were symptoms of sleep apnea. And had we not done that sleep study, it was very likely that he was going to get more and more lectures about early dementia and potentially Alzheimer's, etc. Within weeks, his symptoms improved quite significantly, And that's that gray area over there. These were some of the symptoms that he was having that were due to sleep. But psychiatric symptoms could also manifest themselves as symptoms of sleep disorder. Um, with bipolar disorder, the more severe form of bipolar disorder, bipolar 1, we see significant changes in sleep cycles. In fact, at one point, patients may not be able to fall asleep at all, um, only to be followed by pretty severe depression. Anxiety disorders are very common when it comes to sleep disorders. There are major contributors, if I could add that. And of course, schizophrenia is, in a sense, anxiety that has gone out of control. Substance use and disorders and substance abuse disorders also contribute to all sorts of symptoms that are that are similar to sleep deprivation. Um, Particularly um, stimulants, they tend to shrink REM sleep. Um, Alcohol suppresses the central nervous system, and we see changes in REM sleep, and with the consequent changes in memory, etc. This is a profound statement going back to the Roman area. Quintilian, the great rhetorician, Quintilian wrote, "It is a curious fact of which the reason is not obvious that the interval of a single night will greatly increase the strength of memory. Whatever the cause, things which should not have been recalled on the spot are easily coordinated the next day. And time itself is generally accounted one of the causes of forgetfulness actually serves to strengthen the memory." Now, this was written over 2,000 years ago, and I'd like to spend just a couple minutes to show you how important sleep is for memory. So one of the first things that is affected when you don't get a good night's sleep is memory, changes in memory. And I urge you again, so this is there will be moments of motivational speaking here tonight. Please reach out to other specialties, internal medicine particularly, because many of those doctors see patients and they're quite frustrated. They don't know what to do with them. They have unusual symptoms. I spoke with you several times about chronic pain being one of those symptoms. Lack of sleep, sleep deprivation will result in achiness and malaise. So this is a quick overview just to highlight and emphasize that our two forms of memory are very much sleep dependent. So we often talk about declarative memory on the left side and non-declarative, which includes procedural memory. So traditionally, years back, way back, we used to think that REM was the primary stage in which memory was consolidated. That's not actually accurate. That's a part of the story, not the complete story. For declarative memory, which is episodic, things that happen to you during the day, etc., and semantic, which is general knowledge, that those pieces of memory are actually consolidated in slow wave sleep, which again, please just know that in sleep medicine and for us academics, we still think about stages 3 and 4 and combining them into N3. That's fine, but if you ever see that the 3 and 4, that could still happen. But you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about slow wave sleep. So in slow wave sleep, we begin to consolidate declarative memory. Extremely important for daily functioning, for recalling what happened yesterday, how to recall basic information, which could be compromised if there's a lack of sleep. Procedural memory is profoundly affected by a lack of REM sleep or fast wave sleep. And we know a great deal about the mechanisms that are involved in these. This is Matt Walker's excellent series of papers. I have about 6 or 7 of these, and I will be delighted to share them with you. Again, for you to realize how important your work is when you're working with patients with difficulty falling asleep, maintaining sleep, etc. So the hippocampal neurocortical model of sleep and memory suggests that sleep spindles, which at one point, believe it or not, as I'm very interested in the history of medicine, one of my courses actually takes different disorders back in time. There was a time we had no idea what the sleep spindles were doing, what was their function, and now we know that they play an important role in memory consolidation. So the hippocampus, which is the main or central memory center in the brain, speaks to the cortical area, the neocortical area, through these sleep spindles. So on the bottom of the diagram, you see the hippocampal activity, this new fresh memory that has come in, and you're basically helping them go up in the cortical region so they're much more accessible the next day, exactly what Quintilian was talking about 2,000 years ago. But the next thing that happens was the memory is consolidated, is put together, come together, solidate, made solid together. The connection, the associations are firmed up, which is what happens in sleep and memory. Once those connections are firmed up, then the hippocampal area is ready for the next day. So you can bring in new information, which is on the right side of your slide. Highly recommend reading this paper, beautifully written, very compelling, and very methodically put together. So the hippocampus needs to be working properly. The hippocampal area uses acetylcholine extensively for the work that it's doing, which becomes much more clear when we talk about REM consolidation. This is a activity in the hippocampal area for those who are sleep deprived versus for those who get a good night's sleep. The role of sleep and memory cannot be underestimated. Or overestimated, I should say. It's so critical for proper memory to work. In addition to the interventions that you use to help your patients sleep better, it's critical to also give them certain tools, tools of improving their sleep. The literature is replete with studies that highlight the importance of sleep restriction as a way of improving overall sleep, stimulus control, the use of relaxation training, and also, when necessary, the use of cognitive therapy. I'd like to just quickly go over these with you. You'll need to convey these to your patients, because sometimes when you're making adjustments and you're helping them with these appliances, their behavior has changed. They're sleeping in the wrong place. They're sleeping at the wrong time of the night. So you need to also modify their behavior. So what is sleep restriction about? It is a critical way of reestablishing proper sleep cycles, and that is to, and initially they may resist this, but I think a good conversation, good dialogue is necessary. Go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time in the morning. So what time do you usually go to bed? At 11 o'clock. So don't go to bed at 7 or 8. Go to bed at 11. And then what time do you usually get up in the morning? Well, I try to get up, let's say, at 7. Nope, don't try to get up at 7. 7 o'clock, you're going to be out of bed. So that creating those structures. Go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same. What if I go to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, doctor? You wake up at 7 o'clock, not 8. How about taking a break during the weekends? No, if you want to reestablish those sleep cycles, this works. This is unbelievably well-tested, incredibly helpful method of reestablishing sleep cycles. While in those early stages of teaching people about sleep restriction, no napping. What if I'm tired? Nope, I'm sorry, no napping during the day. Wait until you're tired at night. And then you will see for yourself within 1 week that there will be some noticeable improvements as far as the sleep cycles are concerned. Unfortunately, I can let you know, many people don't follow those rules. Well, I was so tired, I stayed in bed until 10 a.m. and that's the mistake. So get up, force yourself out of bed. This way you're saying, this is the time that I can sleep between these hours. The second one is stimulus control. So sleep restriction people and stimulus control people sometimes don't talk to each other, which is very unfortunate. Life is a dialogue. Human existence is a dialogue, says Martin Buber, the great Martin Buber. So we should dialogue. We should talk about our work in different disciplines. I am primarily an academic, but I have I'm very comfortable talking to physicians and people in dentistry and sleep medicine, etc. It's just establishing that dialogue is extremely critical. So you can combine sleep restriction and stimulus control, which I think is the right thing to do. What do we mean by stimulus control? A stimulus is that which brings about a change in behavior. Stimulus is that which brings about a change in behavior. I look at my cell phone, it's bright, very, very bright. I put it down, I'm wide awake. That's the stimulus. Somebody made a loud noise in the hallway, I'm alert. That's the stimulus. Stimulus is that which brings about a change in behavior. If it doesn't bring about a change in behavior, then it's not a stimulus, it has not reached that threshold. Most of your patients may not like you when you tell them you cannot watch TV in your bedroom, and they will give you a hard time. And if you feel like you're losing that battle, then the next thing is, first of all, try not to lose the battle. But if the next thing to do is to say, if you're going to watch your TV in the bedroom, then you have to use the sleep, the timer mechanism on the remote, and set it for 30 minutes. So what happens is that most people fall asleep watching TV, and 3 hours later, they wake up and the TV is on. Meanwhile, they were exposed to noise, to that bright light, which is powerfully stimulated the brain. Do not work in the bedroom is extremely important. This may sound very trite and obvious, but it is not. I was asked to do a consult with a lovely nurse who had retired, and couple of months after her retirement, she just realized that she could not sleep very well, and they had put her on different medications, trying different things. And I one of the earlier phases of consultation, I asked her, describe your bedroom to me. And these were her words. I can almost repeat, I love my bedroom. If I can't fall asleep, my desk is over there, and I sit there and I write letters to my grandchildren. Forgive me. And I do my billing over there. I write checks. He said, that's not your bedroom, that's your office. But I love being, nope, you have to go to another room and design another room. And she listened to me very carefully, and she showed me a picture of her new bedroom, which just looking at that picture, you became drowsy just looking at it. Very important for couples to not argue in bedroom. Again, it sounds so simple. Please, if you're taking notes, write down, you want to remove those associations. In our bedroom, we argue. In our bedroom, we watch TV. In our bedroom, this is why people get out of their bed and go sit in another room and fall asleep. Because bedroom has been associated with all kinds of activities and sources of stress. If you're going to read, and some people like to read, please use a regular, a real book. Do not use your iPhone or iPad. If you do, please dim the light and don't hold it up. I've dropped things on my head too many times not to share that with you. The best temperature for the bedroom, and please, you can make copies of these, create a brochure out of these. I'm compiling tons of information for you. The best temperature for a bedroom is somewhere around 68 to 72. I would say 70, 71. That by itself will help people sleep well. In my previous lectures, I hope you recall that our core temperature actually drops. One of the switches for sleep is actually regulated by the hypothalamic area. Is actually a drop in core temperature. It's not here, but allow me to just emphasize it to you that you should not exercise at night. Please tell your patients do not exercise at night. If you do exercise at night, your core temperature goes up, and that by itself will keep you up for hours, literally for hours. Conversely, if you are in the military and you have to fly a plane, one way of keeping you up at night during these long flights is to exercise. Do heavy physical exercise, raises your core temperature, and that has been used actually by, I don't know your country, but by our military to keep pilots alert. Lighting should be extremely dim if there is lighting in the bedroom, and more of a reddish hue than blue. As you may recall, blue has the waveform has its higher frequency and lower amplitude. So each time you get to the top of that frequency and the top of that hill, just imagine your optic nerve goes click and click, 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 click. That's actually very stimulating. There are different forms of relaxation. My book explores one of them. I know some of you have these. I have 2 MP3s, which my students and my patients have used now for decades. I will gladly send those to your patients with some instructions. So we can put relaxation exercises into 2 categories, 2 general categories. Those that emphasize on relaxing the body, I refer to these as somatic forms of relaxation, such as progressive relaxation, tensing and relaxing different muscles, which is exactly how the technique was used initially. Dr. Jacobson, a physician, Edmund Jacobson, who came up with the technique, was suffering from severe insomnia, and he learned by tensing and relaxing his muscles that induced relaxation, and he fell asleep. So it became the Jacobsonian technique. Some people will tell you, my body's relaxed, but I cannot fall asleep. Those are actually the majority of people, unless you're working with chronic pain patients. For them, the key is to use more cognitive forms of relaxations, meditative relaxations, such as the use of imagery. I'm sorry that parenthesis should have been closed. I'm going to stay up thinking about why that parenthesis was not closed. So that's called rumination. Rumination has to do with the past, or it has to do with the future. If your patient says, no, I go to bed and I'm just, my mind is bombarded by these negative ideations and thoughts, then you need to connect with a well-trained cognitive therapist whose task will be to help your patients recognize those distorted cognitions, those ideations that are very painful sometimes, and they do profoundly affect sleep. Peggy Sicolo, a few years ago, published two very important studies in which she was able to show that most women in the United States, when they go to bed, they ruminate, they actually recall, ruminate, bring back images, ideas, thoughts about that day. And I can't believe Susie didn't call me. I can't believe I didn't make it to my office early enough. I was 5 minutes late, etc. I've asked my students, this is a women's college, so I've asked my students, when you go to bed, do you think about the events of the previous day? And almost always their hands are up. So that's rumination. Anxiety, worry will be about the future. This was to just give you some background and hopefully get you to ask some questions regarding some of these. And I'll take you back to Bethlehem. There it is, downtown Bethlehem, my city. So I am done with my presentation, and I'm going to come out of the presentation mode. So, and I would love to answer some of your questions.